Hello, this is Scott Moore, the Baden-Powell Service Association, and today I'm going to be reviewing some of the common lashings that are used in the Rover Practical Training test. I'm going to start off with the round lashing and the shear lashing. Both of these are actually used to bind two poles adjacent to each other. Both start off with a clove hitch, which I've already tied on these two spars. We're going to start off with the round lashing first. For a round lashing, you want to have the clove hitch tied around both poles. A round lashing would be used in a situation where you want to take two staves, and make them into a longer one. So you can see the second one's quite a bit longer than the first. So to begin this, you're going to do a clove hitch around both of your spars. And a trick to any lashing is you want these to be as tight as possible. The tighter you can make any of your binds or any of your wraps or your fraps, the better it's going to hold up. So once you've got two clove hitches, all you simply do is wind your rope around both spars. And once you've done this, say 7 times or so, keeping pressure on it to make sure that the ropes stay pretty tight around the two spars. So once you've done that, you're going to finish off with another clove hitch tied around both spars, which I'm not going to do just to save time. But when using the round lashing to attach two poles, there's still some play, as you can see, between the two poles, and of course they can slip in a direction parallel to their length because the lashing is just around the outside diameter of the two poles. When using this, you want to make sure, especially if you're constructing something that's very tall or critical that you want to stay for a while, you want to make sure you do several round lashings, at least a pair of them, kind of short distance away but adjacent to each other, so that you kind of strengthen the bind between the two poles. So that's the shear lashing, like I said, with a clove hitch, additional clove hitch at the top, which I'm not going to put in just to save time. And then we're going to do the shear lashing. That was the round lashing. For the shear lashing, I'm going to come back down to my original clove hitch. The shear lashing is still to join two poles, but to start off, we're only going to do the clove hitch around a single spar. I'm just going to take this out and tighten it up. So the difference between the round lashing, which we just did, and the shear lashing, which we're doing now, besides the fact that you start with a clove hitch around a single spar, once you do your wraps, it can be a little bit more difficult to do with the shear lashing, just because you now have that additional space between your spars because of the clove hitch only being around a single spar. Well, once we've done our wraps around both spars, we're going to add fraps. And for those of you unfamiliar with the term fraps, a wrap is what you call it when you wind rope around a spar or an item or an object. A frap is when you wrap rope around rope. So there, we've got a pretty good tight set of wraps there. It looks very similar to the original round lashing, except you'll notice at the bottom my clove hitch is only around one of the spars. Now I'm going to take my rope, I'm going to put it in between the spars. So there's the back. All I did was wrap it around in between. And again, you want these to be good and tight. And then I'm not wrapping it around either of the spars. I'm just going to wrap the rope around the rope. And these are called frapping turns. After you've done 3 or 4 fraps, and make sure each one is pulled tight. Again, I would finish this with a clove hitch around the opposite spar that I started on. So instead of putting a clove hitch here, I'm going to put a clove hitch up here, and that would bind those two together. Now, you could use this for some of the same things that you would use the round lashing for. I want to connect poles together to make a flagpole or something like that. But one of the advantages of this, because you have those that space between the two spars, you can easily, probably more easily than shear lashing, you can bend the spars. So if you need to put something at an angle, you can do that. This lashing is great for, say, a rest for target shooting. If you want to lay a rifle across it or something like that, if you're shooting at targets. It's also supposed to be good for lifting loads, probably just because you can wedge it apart. But again, once you tie it off, and even without tying it off with the clove hitch, it's actually pretty tight just because the fraps have stiffened because they're scrunched between the two poles here. But you always want to finish off with a clove hitch just to make sure it's secure. And if this rope was not so long, I would do that. So that is the round lashing and the shear lashing.